And this is yet another map that makes for really, really interesting Protoss versus Protoss matchup. Alright. SCAstrea is going to be our blue Protoss, bringing it back to 1-1 score, taking Ohana in the last map. Can he take a lead for the first time in this series? This is a best of 7, keep in mind, guys. And his opponent, the red Protoss player, ROOTminigun. I would say 8 out of 10 times in a PvP, you'll see either one player or the other, or both, open up with Blink aggression. If I was casting Baby Knight, that would be more like a 99.9%. If I was casting Elfie, it'd be like 80% that he would open with some shenaniganry via a Warp Prism. I have to say that too. Alright, so Warp Prism 4-gate is pretty common on this map as well, because there's a lot of opportunity for you to proxy the Warp Prism through this back entryway. And Blink, you have this huge ramp that you have to, well, the ramp here, but you have this huge ledge that leads into your base. And Blink Observer, you can blink up there so easily. And even then, I mean, you have to constantly defend between your natural and your main. If you do take a relatively early expansion, you have to be ready to defend against blink pressure. And proxies are also somewhat frequent on this map as well. We see Minigun checking his base as well as Astrea. You just want to be safe. Although very rarely do we ever see proxy gates in a PvP series. In a show match, I have to say. Not a PvP series. Occasionally in tournaments you will see proxy play. Although I feel that we've gotten to the point where it's not that cheese isn't effective. It's been, for the most part, it's able to be effectively countered. Either through scouting or through just sheer playing X amount of games and playing X amount of games specifically against proxy pressure or some sort of other cheese cannon rushing, what be it. You learn how to counter the strategies. Just happens. I mean, the game's been out for 3 years at this point. Hard to believe, but yes, indeed. And wow, Astrea is actually opening up the same build. The gas timing is slightly different, though. This... I don't know. I don't want to peg this as something quite yet, as it's a rather generic gas timing. However, he is opening up the second gate, so we will be seeing Stalkers out in the early game. Meanwhile, Minigun taking his own gas. And he is going to be opting for that Stalker. First time he's gone for a Stalker this series. Alright, I'm assuming at this point it's going to be Blink, because of the way he filled up the geysers right after he got that third pylon down. It would make the most sense, especially considering the map and his opponent getting a Twilight Council as well. Now, there are two things that we can see from this. We can see the same DT opening that we saw in Game 1 from both of these players, or we could see Blink harassment, with or without an observer. Generally, you get an observer. And that's, I think, the gas timing for Astrea's build is going to be, is going to include a robotics facility in his production. Most likely off of 3 gates instead of 4. Do see an additional gateway following up, then there's a second one from Minigun. Will he throw down 3? Or is he waiting for something else? Blink is being researched right now for both players. So, yes indeed, my 80% rule has come into effect yet again. Although I have to say, it makes so interesting when the games open up something completely aside from Blink play on a map like Cloud Kingdom, on a map like Antigua Shipyard. Because you know going into it that the players had to have thought repeatedly what they would do in order to successfully defend against Blink play with whatever build that they chose. So either some sort of anti-timing comes out of it, or otherwise. Robotics facility down for Minigun, none yet from Astrea. And he is off of 3 gates. This is in lieu of himself adding like 4 or 5 gates, which would be just crazy talk. I really like the way that Minigun's path is proxy pylon. So this will eventually be a proxy pylon, yes, but in doing so, he checked all the common proxy locations. It's really, really solid. If you find yourself losing to random units appearing in your base when you don't want them to in a PvP, do this. It's a very, very solid way to play. And Yeah, alright, so SCAstrea did indeed see that his opponent was sending a pylon into it, or a probe into his base. I wasn't quite sure that he caught it initially. And, alright, yeah, so Blink is finished for both players. Minigun is actually getting quite a fair amount of hull damage on his opponent. And keep in mind, he does have a Zealot forward as well, so this will screw with his opponent's AI a little bit if he's not really, really careful with how he target fires. SCAstrea is poised to go for an expansion, but I think that after realizing that his opponent did open up Blink as well, he's deciding to put a little bit more pressure on his opponent. Ooh, and this is going to be quite good for Minigun. He has the better engagement here, but SCAstrea's Blink Picker so far has been pretty good. Nice trade there for both players. Definitely went SCAstrea's way a little bit more. And let's see. The Observer is making its way into his opponent's base, and it will see this Nexus. This is huge. Minigun now, he has to either expand himself or he has to go for some sort of counter-aggression. But this position here by SCAstrea, he's forcing Minigun to waste a Blink to try and get out of here. And if he goes around the long way, Minigun's going to be completely out of position, and SCAstrea can take advantage of that. And he does have an Observer here forward, too. So he can tell exactly when his opponent is pulling back, pushing forward. This is really, really valuable. Now, SCAstrea is supply blocked right now. Pylon is finishing up, so he can get another round of Stalkers in. Oh, he's actually begun Immortal production. All right. So now we are entering the defensive phase for SCAstrea. Minigun is throwing up a Nexus of his own. So this will most likely advance into 2-base. Now, 2-base games, there are two ways they play out on Clay Kingdom. You can have a 2-base into ridiculously fast 3rd base, because it's very easy to secure this once you have some sorts of AoE. Or you see one player go for a contain on the other player, taking a 3rd base behind it, and just continuing to rally units forward. It's really, I mean, it's the same thing that would happen in a TVT, where your opponent gets a siege contain up on you. You have to inch forward gradually, try and take a huge engagement, and hope for a good trade. Or go for some counter-harassment in your opponent's base, which Minigun really likes to do via those Warp Prisms. And this gas timing, I mean, PvP, it's really all about gas when it comes down to it. And the fact that he has his geyser up and mining is really, really going to help him out. Now, having said that, both players at a relatively even front here. Minigun, obviously he's 8 Harvesters down. His opponent had a Nexus faster than him. He's mining gas, a little bit slower than his opponent. But they're on relatively equal footings. Minigun can come back from this. This is not a complete landslide. SCAstrea is in no way already deciding the victor of the game. He can do something to force that by going for like just chrono boosting a couple more Immortals and trying to go for it. Or going for a similar play like he did in the Ohana game, albeit somewhat slower, where he goes for a single Colossi to break through his opponent's force field. Now, Minigun already has his Observer in position here to try and get into his opponent's base. And SCAstrea looking to defend there, but nope, Minigun actually, he knows exactly what his opponent's doing. So he doesn't want to blink up into his opponent's main when he just saw Stalkers going into there. Who knew, right? I really like the positioning of Minigun's Immortals here. If your opponent sends a Zealot Force to run by, something via a Proxy Pylon, he's going to be ready for it and he's not going to lose not going to lose too much to him. We do have a Forge coming down here from Minigun. He seems to be quite eager to get those upgrades. It's something we've seen more and more in the PvP as this matchup has evolved, but, I mean, like a year and a half ago, it's just whoever has the most Colossi wins. I mean, well, even a year ago, 4Gate was still on death's doors. It wasn't quite over yet. It's not what we see right now, but there were still some hooks out there, some MSEs, 4Gating it up. Now, SCAstrea does have knowledge of these Stalkers, but he really needs to be careful about how he engages it. These 3 Immortals will absolutely tear through these Stalkers, especially with the Guardian Shield thrown in there. But his opponent has a higher Stalker count on the ground. And there's no Immortal here for SCAstrea to cover for it. He does have a Colossus right there, and it will actually deter these forces from Minigun. But this is keeping his opponent on his toes. Maybe he misses a couple probe production cycles, Because he's scared. Maybe my opponent's actually committing to a 2-base attack. I should probably make units instead of Chrono Boost probes out right now. But both players are actually taking their 3rd base. Alright. So now, it has entered the Colossus phase. I don't think I'll ever get over these worker tabs. What do you think, guys? This is something that I haven't had the opportunity to ask so far. But as far as the Wings of Liberty tournaments go, pots you generally see... Whoa, a little bit of regression here. Pause for a second. What are the upgrades like for these players? We have +1 complete for SCAstrea. He's not quite started +2 yet, but he does have an advantage. Albeit for a small amount of time on his opponent. So would you guys like to see these featured on or off? The worker counts, and the gas, etc. Does that make it easier to just spot check? I mean, it's not something that I feel you generally have to have an observer tell you, hey, you know what, he's oversaturated here. But, hey, man, it's individual preference, so... If you could comment on it, I'll check it after the game in the comments. In the chat channel. No! Alright, so this Lone Stalker Bob here will die. Unfortunately, no, it actually won't. Had to do a double take there. 1 HP remaining. Alright, and now double Colossus production begins for both players, but the all-important Archon transmit... Oh my god, yes, they have the new observer features in. I guess there's a building tab, too. Is there? Let's see. Forget what it's called. Structures T. Yeah, there we go. Sick. This is going to make things so much easier. One of the main reasons I enjoyed casting Heart of the Swarm is because these observer features are just so much better than the Wings of Liberty era. But now, have access to all. There's a Colossus here, so Minigun has to be careful about engaging. He is, blinks back immediately, and a Dark Shrine is going to come down for Minigun. You very, very, very rarely ever see High Templar used for storm purposes until it gets to like the late game for High Templar drop, stuff like that. So, Minigun's actually making a choice. He's going to use DTs for Archons instead of High Templar. Whereas his opponent has chosen the lesser mineral count investment. DTs cost 25 less gas than a Dark Templar to warp in. Than a High Templar to warp in. I was confused there briefly. Right. So there have been some proxy pylons placed. And yeah, very nice by Minigun just to send out a squadron of stalkers here so you confront them. And, alright, so SCAstrea is moving out of the map right now. Cloud Kingdom, it's so freaking hard to engage this in a PvP. You just, when it gets to this phase, when it gets to the 3-base phase, your opponent will get that first Colossi shot off, and that could be at the behest of a good amount of your Zealots, depending on how many Colossi his opponent has. And these, yeah, alright. Stalkers had a date with death there, they committed into that, but that's not the case. They will simply go by and pick off pylons. Although he doesn't know about this yet. Oh gosh. I turned on miniguns for a second. And had Archons shouting at me. Alright, so SCAstrea is going to attempt to go for this. He is spread between 2 areas of engagement. Sending his Colossi in first, and now moving forward with the bulk of his army. Charge has completed, so this is actually going pretty well for SCAstrea here thus far. Guardian Shield down on the one. Half of his army. Unfortunately, the other has to go without, but he's still doing quite well. And he has Zealots left over. This is big, because his Immortals have survived. The Immortals can target fire down the Colossi so easily when his opponent's Zealots count is down to none. And the Colossi can easily clean up the additional Zealot weapons of his opponent, and SCAstrea taking a convincing engagement here, and the DT is actually coming to play here. There is no observer for SCAstrea forward. This is Minigun's observer right here, the red one. He is actually going to commit to this farther. Although he does have 2 Colossi in production. Oh no, there's the observer right there. Alright, so yeah, SCAstrea taking a decisive victory in Game 3.